Yeah, we got some people from Fern here. That's the Foresight Education and Research Network, and they've got a meetup group in Melbourne, and the meetup is actually called Foresight Meetup Melbourne. So Neil Houghton is the convener of this meetup group, and Neil's going to talk about strategic forecasting. Cheers, Neil.
Thanks, strategic forecasting, how's that?
Is that right?
Close.
Future studies.
Kick me off when the time's up, okay?
Okay, indeed. All right.
So I sent Adam a couple of thoughts when I was in the train coming in, and I thought three things I'll mention. Okay, I'll mention midnight, I'll mention trajectories, and I'll mention the art of the future. Okay, so that captures where my mind is and the sorts of things I think are important around strategic foresight. So yeah, we have a strategic foresight meetup that meets in Melbourne, about 75 members at the moment, and next Wednesday at Swinburne University we have a meetup. So yeah, look, check us out on the web if you want to. So I want to start with midnight. Now, maybe there's a few people here who've seen Eddie Obang's TED Talk. Who has? Whoa. Check it out. Okay, Eddie talks about a few things. He talks about change happening in the world. He talks about time. Okay, and he says basically, change is doing that. The level of complexity, change is just, multiplying. Exponential movement is happening here. Now, what he also says is we've got learning, or maybe we could call this our current knowledge base. Now, here, things seem okay. But at some point here, okay, this change is happening and it's gone past what we know. We've entered some sort of chaotic zone or whatever. Now, it's that point there. And Eddie calls that midnight. Okay, we've entered midnight. Now, midnight is where the rules of the game have changed.
BFM, big fucking mess.
Exactly.
Are we there yet?
Well, some people will say yes, some will say no. But there's some really interesting things to think about. So, if that's sort of the midnight framing here, what on earth do we do about that? Where's a role for strategic foresight, futures thinking, in responding to this, the mess of midnight? So, a couple of things I've been thinking about. How on earth can we start to think about scaling up our learning, scaling up our knowledge base so that we can deal with the way that this change in complexity and uncertainty is happening. Okay? So that's what really intrigues me. That shape of that trajectory. That's the second point I want to discuss. So I'm really curious about this trajectory. Where are the leverage points to start to do some work around that idea? So it's this notion of scaling up and getting in front of this midnight point. So, just thinking about that idea, I've grabbed that idea there that here we have this thing that let's just call a trajectory. Okay, so some interesting things happening there. Now inside of this trajectory, there's a few curious things happening, I think. So for me, some little things are happening along this curve. And I'm just going to call that transition. So we have lots of transitions happening along this trajectory. And the transitions are interior to individuals. The transitions are also exterior in the real world in which we engage. But these transitions are really curious for me. Now, at these points here, okay, something else needs to happen too. And I just draw that like this. Okay? So we have transitions, but these things here, I'm going to call touch points. Okay? So here, we have a touch point. There we have a touch point. So touch point with what? Well, in here and in there. And in fact, at all of these transition points along this trajectory, we have touch points with the field of the future. Okay? That's one of the challenges for strategic foresight, to create touch points with the field of the future. Okay? The last point I want to add to this is that between, say, all of these points of transition that happen, I'm going to say that there's something that's changing as we progress here. Okay? Yep. And I'm just going to call that transience. Not too sure which word I should use at the moment, but transience. So there's something about transience that's important for how these transitions occur, how these touch points engage us in the field of the future, and the notion of transience as we progress. So that's midnight. That's trajectories. Okay, and the third point was the art of the future. Now, the art of the future really came from our previous strategic foresight meetup, where the question was posed, what is the essence of foresight? And we had a number of people discussing that idea. We had some brilliant, great debate and discussion and dialogue. The essence of the future, the essence of foresight, what is it? Well, this will be quick, Adam. So I'm going to say, well, let's think about 4 ideas. Okay, and this is not integral 4 quadrant, so calm down, it's okay. Okay, now I'm going to say here that transitions are in there. Okay, I'm going to say that touch points are in there. I'm going to say trajectories are there. And then I'll also say that transience is in there. So what are these 4 things? So I'm saying, okay, I think that we could think about this as foresight. I think we can think about this as wisdom. I also think we can think about this as anticipation. And this one, well, I'm going to call this one agency. Now, there is theories behind each of these. There is ontologies behind each of these. So I'm going to say the art of foresight, the essence of foresight. And foresight is the art of gradients. So we can think about gradients and how that might have some sort of temporal aspect. So I'm going to say this here is the art of gradients. Okay? In wisdom here, I'm just going to add another term here. And I'm going to say this is the art of ambience. Interior ambience, exterior ambience, the ambience we live in, finding those moments where we can actualise our wisdom within ambience. Okay, just about there. 2 minutes, that's fine. Anticipation. Well, what art could that be? Let me see. Let me start over here with agency. I'm going to say agency is the art of appearance. So through our agency, through our actions, we create stuff that appear as if. These appearances come and go. They exhibit transience, which takes us back to where we started here. Okay? Anticipation, art of imminence. So for me, this thing here captures what I call the art of the future. Here is the art of the future. So there's a whirlwind tour of midnight. What do we do with it? How do we actualise trajectories to scale up our knowledge and learning to deal with the mess of midnight? And how does foresight engage with the art of the future? I think there's some ideas in there that we can explore. Thanks, Adam.
Excellent, no worries. We've probably got a chance for one question, if there's any. Okay, over here.
Has anyone made any predictions about how far away the catastrophe point is?
On the midnight idea, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, people say we are already past midnight.
Yeah.
And you might use notions of peak oil to represent that. People use the notion of peak fish to represent being past midnight as well.
Yeah. In other words, our knowledge is broken down already.
Yeah, yeah. So this is about creating our interior capacity to respond to that.
Thanks. Just one quick one. Is humanity too big to fail?
Let's discuss that this evening and see what we come up with.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you very much. Thanks, Neil. So, put your hands together.